Hi, I'm Sally Hetherington, and I'm the founder and CEO of Human and Hope, and we're an Australian charity that financially supports a locally run community centre in Cambodia. In 2009, I travelled to Cambodia for the first time, and I didn't actually know anything about the country. And it was a 10-day trip to a few provinces, and like many people who visit, I felt compelled to help, because I learned about the history of the Khmer Rouge and I witnessed the poverty that people lived in. And I saw that there were lots of NGOs, which are called non-government organizations, who were helping those people. And I actually organized a trip to visit an orphanage in rural Siem Reap. But of course, I know better now, and I know that I shouldn't have done that. But that experience compelled me to come back to Cambodia as a voluntourist. Honestly, it's really difficult to remember what I did as a volunteer. I was working directly with children at a residential home, but I wasn't actually qualified to work with children, and I didn't see it at the time, but those kids would have really benefited greatly from full-time local teachers who could have provided consistency and stability, especially because they came from vulnerable backgrounds. And of course, while I was there, I thought I was doing an amazing job in providing children with fun and love, but that wasn't right. I was gone a month later, and that can't be of benefit to anyone. Being a former voluntourist and also a volunteer coordinator, I've really seen many issues associated with voluntourism. We don't have time for that, so let's focus on three. So firstly is that locals, not foreigners, are best placed to solve the needs of their community. They know the culture and the community best. They know what's worked and what hasn't worked, and they are there for the long term. And second is that working with vulnerable people requires a unique approach. And the best people to do that are the local people who can provide consistency and ongoing support. They also know the language and that culture. And we might not realize it, but when we volunteer in schools and communities in countries like Cambodia, we can unknowingly worsen that trauma with our actions or our words. And third is that voluntourism is a short-term solution to a long-term problem. And people may help at organizations for just one day or a few weeks, but most issues are long-term problems. When change comes from the local community, it instills a sense of pride and local ownership. And local communities must be invested in the process of development, because if they aren't, the chances of programs succeeding or change being permanent are very low. And this is why I developed a community centre with a team of local Cambodians in Siem Reap, voluntarily made myself redundant, and it's now been entirely locally run since 2016. Well, first and foremost, you can be an ethical traveller. You can shop and dine and stay at social enterprises or ethical businesses so that community members have access to stable and fair employment. And in Siem Reap, you can donate blood at Ankle Hospital for Children and literally save a life in a way that doesn't involve voluntourism. You can also donate money or supplies to charities who are doing work on the ground, but just make sure that the supplies you're donating are useful and that the NGO has a need. And when you donate supplies to NGOs, buy in country so that you can support the local economy. And if you do end up visiting an NGO, make sure that they have a visitor policy that they enforce, because you shouldn't be allowed to have direct contact with children or be able to take photos. Children are not a tourist attraction. Voluntourism is complicated and it's controversial, and you have people and companies and organizations who swear by it, and you have people like me who speak out against it. And I do acknowledge that voluntourism will always be around, at least in my lifetime, but it's really important that the travel industry speaks with and learns from locally run organizations and those with the lived experiences of those issues associated with voluntourism. And this will enable them to understand why we can't always take something at face value, and then the travel industry can confidently speak on the matter. It's through education and shifts of values and culture that things will change, and that starts from deep within the travel industry.